Call this Harris County Board of Commissioners work session to order on April 29 of 2022. And before we get started this evening, I think we have Commissioner Langston online with us this evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear us?
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Alex, thank you and your crew for setting this up so I can attend virtually. And I just wanted to give the reason for my virtual attendance. It is due to a COVID diagnosis for both me and my husband last week, and out of fear and concern for those of you who are there, I did not want to attend in person. I'm recovering well. My husband, however, Dwight, is not recovering well. He is very, very ill. I've been hospitalized since last Wednesday, but he wanted me to at least say to you, those who have reached out to us with their care, their concern, their support, and their prayers, that we are most grateful. He has a very long way to go and still needs that support of the prayers if you are a praying person. But he did want me to let you know that we are very appreciative of that. So thank you.
Thank you. So tonight we're again looking at the UDC, and Lee Walton with the Wood is here this evening. Mr. Walton, I think you have some information that you can share with us again this evening.
I do. Of course, I'm here to assist the discussion on any points that you would like. Got the whole book here. Glad to go to any page, look at any detail, talk about any possible alternative. But the brief bit of information that we put together, or proposal, as it's stated, from the Community Development Department, was developed after the last two public hearings before your meeting, and also Planning Commission meeting, where we heard similar comments at both public hearings from citizens in attendance, some here tonight, who expressed concerns, but also, and very importantly, asked a lot of sort of detailed questions, hypothetical, what if scenarios, and brought forth just a number of scenarios of concern to them based on what they understood specifically about the proposed minimum lot size in the A1 district. So we discussed options, looked at a variety of options, and are proposing for your consideration an option that is, I guess I'd call it a more nuanced approach to the minimum lot size for minor subdivision activity in the A1 area, which of course has been one of our primary points of discussion over the past number of months. I think the slide you have before you explain it, but in simplicity, what is proposed is to modify the standard minor subdivision provision, talking about minor subdivision accessible to anyone, not reserved only for heirs and family rights circumstances. That's a separate issue. But in any for minor subdivision available to anyone, the proposal is, instead of establishing a single blanket minimum lot size of any acreage, 10 or otherwise, but 10 is what we do. Instead of establishing a single blanket that would apply uniformly, the option of establishing, as quoted here, minimum lot size shall be the lesser of 10 acres or 1/3 of the existing parcel or tract acreage, with an absolute minimum lot size of 2 acres. And then there's a bit more detail, but why take this approach? Why consider this approach? Many, if not most, of the hypothetical circumstances or examples we heard what ifs that the answers cause some concern, basically amounted to the inability to subdivide smaller in quotes, but smaller lots that might be zoned A1, that might be family property or inherited or bought or what have you. Basically with a 10-acre minimum, severely limiting the possibilities for smaller lots. So what we looked for was a way to provide relief to small lot owners without severely impacting the broader goal of rural open land, agricultural land preservation. So the equation that we proposed, we believe, at least moves in that direction. It doesn't achieve it. And it's easiest to explain in terms of examples. So that's why on the additional slides we included a few examples, and there are many, many more that we can talk through. Supplying the equation is fairly simple. So using this approach in the example of an existing 4-acre parcel, zone A1, and a resident desiring to use minor subdivision to subdivide that or to build a house or for whatever purpose. Applying that equation of minimum lot size being the lesser of 10 acres or 1/3 of the existing parcel of tract acreage with an absolute minimum size of 2, an existing 4-acre parcel cannot be divided into thirds because each resulting lot would be less than 2 acres absolute minimum. So it could be divided into two 2-acre lots. I'll throw in an additional example. An existing 6-acre parcel by this equation could be subdivided through minor subdivision into 3 2-acre lots. And remember that the maximum number of lots that can be created by minor subdivision in the proposed ordinance is 3 at one time. Another example presented is an existing 40-acre parcel, not a smaller parcel, but certainly small compared to some of the very large tracts in the county. Applying this equation, the existing 40-acre parcel could be subdivided into 3 13-plus acre lots, or 2 10-acre lots, and 1 20-acre lot. So really it's the 10-acre standard that applies at that scale. Anytime you're at 30 acres or more under this equation, effectively the 10-acre minimum lot size still applies. When we get to very large lots, there's another provision. There has been a provision in the code, and it's proposed to remain, what's called a large lot split provision. So the example in the case of an existing 120-acre lot, we propose revising the large lot split minimum acreage to 30 acres, which would allow a 120-acre lot to be first subdivided into 4 30-acre parcels, and then afterwards, by a minor subdivision, 30-acre parcel could be divided into 3 10-acre parcels. So there's some flexibility there. And we can go through many more examples as you talk about the different variations that are possible. I guess to conclude, we discussed among ourselves what are the pros and what are the cons of this, and everything you're proposing to do, there's pluses and minuses. So as we see it, it's a pro or a positive. This provides a scaled approach. It helps preserve large tracts in truly rural areas, while also allowing smaller tracts in areas previously subdivided, or allowing subdivision to create smaller lots. It creates smaller lot options for minor subdivisions to aid in housing affordability concerns and to assist with family interests in some cases. And it allows families to subdivide and sell land from smaller family-owned tracts in addition to the family heirs provisions. Those would remain the same we propose at a 3-acre minimum lot size. The difference with the family heirs option for the family side is that the maximum number of lots created without planning commission approval is 6, as opposed to 3 under standard minor subdivision. So there's just sort of different options, different approaches. One individual or family might find one approach more advantageous or appropriate, another a different approach, just depending on circumstances. There are some cons, there's some negatives to this approach compared with the current proposed in the UDC. It would be more complicated to manage than a blanket minimum lot size. The department would have to track and even make an assessment, understanding the basis lot size that we tracked. We're talking about the ability to divide an existing tract by 1/3. That's not a single standard number that's applied everywhere. So there's a tracking process, some calculations. And with respect to rural land preservation, it is likely that more small lots will result in certain areas, A1 zone, compared with the blanket approach. And to that point, we asked ourselves where and how much. So we went through a mapping exercise. I can hold this in a way that will be more visible to everyone, I'm sure. But basically, we looked at the existing parcels arrangement across the county. And this obviously is a rough study and can get more and more refined as data improves and so forth. We started by using green to highlight resort areas and pink to highlight R1 zone areas existing. And then we looked at the remainder of the county, which, as has been mentioned many times, the majority of county property is currently zoned A1. So we looked across that A1 landscape to see where are there parcels that would be 30 acres or less in size, so that this approach would result in minor subdivided lots, potentially less than 10 acres in size. That's what's highlighted in yellow. So you can see the majority of acreage across the county that's in A1 is in tracts larger than or even larger than 30 acres. And in those areas, under this proposed equation, the effective minimum lot size for a minor subdivision in A1 would remain 10 acres. In the areas, generally in the areas highlighted yellow, tracts are generally 30 acres or smaller, and sometimes as little as an acre.
Sometimes smaller.
Sometimes smaller than that. There are some A1 properties that are very small. And of course, we propose maintaining the 2-acre minimum in any circumstance, but it's in those yellow highlighted areas generally where this approach would or could result in creation of minor subdivision lots as small as 2 acres, or again, hypotheticals, a 9-acre parcel could be divided into.
Lee, excuse me, Lee, is there a way I can see what you're showing?
How can we do that?
You have to stand in front
The
of
camera? All right.
She'll have to tell you when she
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. Closer or farther away? How's that?
Oh, farther away a little
Farther
bit,
away,
just a little, just a little more, okay, good.
Okay. So again, green is your resort zone properties, the Callaway Resort and so forth. Pink, existing R1 zoning, and then yellow highlight, if you can see the yellow highlight through the.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yellow highlighted areas are the areas generally where parcels are 30 acres or less, so minor subdivision under the concept we're talking about could result in lots smaller than 10 acres. And it's widespread across the county, but it's not the majority of land in the county.
So it's High Mountain Valley, and to the south, we're,
Yes, if you want to talk about, generally
Yeah, most of it's
High Mountain Valley,
Palm Mountain Valley right in this area.
that's because those were
Right,
designed to be 6 acres. 6 acres was defined as farm in
correct.
the development of High Mountain Valley, up to 32 acres.
And then you've got a few over here, this is 219, and then of course along the 315 corridor, which is where you really pick up. And you'll notice there's some very large tracts that are R1 that nothing's been built on.
Yeah. Well, you can look at that map and tell why there's an outcry of saturation in the South County while we're hearing that. And you can also look at that map and determine why the folks in the north aren't up here screaming it, because it hasn't gotten to them. But it will if we continue the way we are today. Which is why, personally, I'm adamant about us having to change, is because the rest of that map is going to become more and more pink if we don't do something to protect those ag lands.
Again, that pink could go anywhere on this map, all you have to do is zone it R1.
I know. But it gives us another look.
It does.
At what's around and what we want it to look like.
More questions about the map?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the audience.
So those yellows are 30 or below.
Correct.
They were zoned A1 right now.
Zone A1 right now. And they range everywhere from a tenth of an acre all the way up to 30.
Yeah, there you go.
So again, your green is your resort zoning, which is not really, we just wanted to point those out. The pink is already zoned R1, and the yellow that you see all over the map are lots that are 30 acres or less, and range all the way from a tenth of an acre to 30 acres.
So the 30 acres or less.
And of
Zone
course,
A1, excuse me.
the significance of 30 acres or less, it was a test of this equation that we developed. I mean, a 29-acre parcel, you'd be allowed under this equation subdivided into 3, so slightly under 10 acres per parcel. Math just works progressively from there.
So if it, about 40 acres is the tipping point.
Well, really, 30 acres is the tipping point. At 30 acres, it's an either or. Either 10 acres or 1/3 of the existing tract is equal to 10 acres. So for an existing tract below 30 acres in size, this approach is more advantageous, if you will, than a simple flat 10-acre minimum. At 30 acres and above, the 10-acre minimum would still apply to this equation.
Unless it's rezoned.
Unless it's rezoned. Yeah, nothing,
At which
nothing.
point, it can be 2 acre lots.
Absolutely. Nothing changes with any other aspect of rezoning possibilities, R1 subdivision itself. It's the only aspect that this proposed equation replaces is the 10-acre minimum lot size applied specifically to minor subdivision in A1, not associated with family or heirs rights.
So if you had 30 acres and you had 6 siblings and the parent died, they still can divide that 6 equal ways. Because they're
Correct, they could
family.
go more than,
Well, I'm just saying, well, we're just talking 6 siblings, but because they're family, they still can do it that way.
to
But if
3
they-
per lot.
But if they weren't family, they couldn't divide it 6 ways,
Correct,
right?
correct.
And they could leave it A1, they wouldn't have to rezone it,
No.
even if they divided it 6 ways with the family.
As long as it's family, and we broaden that as well.
And then what about the, how many times can you divide within how much time?
That's still 2 years as it's slated in the book right now, and even in the new stuff, that term where we went back and looked at it with the attorney that has really driven a lot of things home, it's gonna protect things that won't happen anymore, where people, you have a builder that buys, or you have a builder that goes and buys 7 acres, and then or 10 acres or whatever, and then he divides his up into 3 2-acre lots, and he sells it to somebody else, and they divide it up into 3 2-acre lots. Well, that now will count as a major, and you'll have to go through you don't have to go through a rezoning, well, no, you will. You'll have to go through a rezoning process at that point.
So what if you take the 30 acres and you divide it 3 ways, so now you got 3 10-acre A1 lots? Not family, it just got divided, sold it off.
Good.
So the person that bought that 10 acres has to wait 2 years before he can turn around and sell off even 2 acres.
Correct. But he won't be able to sell off 2.
Yeah, the minimum in that case would be 3 1/3.
It would be that 3 1/3.
Right, so that goes back to the point I was making before, is you got 10 and you only wanna sell 2 because you need to pay a bill where it is. So he's gonna have to rezone the whole 10 to R1, even though he wants to keep 8 acres A1.
If he wants to get rid of 2 acres, yes. If he wanted to get 3 1/3 acres gone, he'd be legal.
Right, so that he could turn around and sell 3 1/3 acres and then keep the, let's just say 7 acres A1.
Yeah.
And 3 acres would go R1. We'd have to give up more land than he might want
No,
to.
he wouldn't even
but-
have to change it at that point.
Right, that's what I'm saying, he could give up more land than he might want to, but he could still keep it A1.
Correct.
What if you have, and I hate to say what if, but I know we've been doing that.
We were,
That's what we understand.
What, all right, because I do know that coming through the planning commission, there was a commercial lot that was about 8.33 acres that wanted to rezone to A1.
right.
Under this, at 10 acres, they couldn't do that. Because they're zoned commercial right now for a wedding venue, and they want to rezone to A1, but they have less than 10 acres. So under this code, they would not be allowed to do that. And they're trying to get out of commercial. Now, I think they've since changed their mind, and I don't care about that, but it made me start thinking, and that's the people, I mean, I'm talking about all people, that's what I kept thinking about. We have a commercial lot that has a house on it that was used for a wedding venue of 8 point whatever acres. They don't want to do that anymore. They want to come back to A1 and leave it A1. With this new thing being 10 acres, they couldn't do it.
Right.
They just couldn't divide.
Because right now, we have the minimum set for any
Has to be
rezoning
10
in A1 has to be 10 acres.
And the commissioners or the planning commission would not have the ability to say they could, because the code would say they can't. And I don't think that part's right, because they're trying to come back to A1, and we're all sitting up here saying, we're trying to preserve A1, but now we're not gonna let these people come back to A1.
Now, is there a way to be able to write some kind of verbiage in everywhere in those unique situations that there could be some discretionary thought was given to?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I know that may not happen a whole lot, but,
Right.
Right, but that is one that recently
but I mean,
came
it just
up
came up a
and
week
was
or two.
pulled at the last minute.
Right, it just came up a week or two ago, which made me think about,
That's exactly right.
I think, I don't see a problem, I think that would be a very minor change to allow that circumstance, because there you're not creating a lot by subdivision, you're strictly dealing with an existing lot of record. So if the wording is interpreted such that that would not be possible at present, I think we can clarify, because the intent that I understand would be, yes, that's no problem.
right, but the wording, the way we have it is, they couldn't.
Well, not exactly, the wording
Well,
really.
we keep saying it's gotta be 10 acres.
Well, in order, the result of subdivision is a minimum lot size of 10 acres.
But they're not subdivided.
But if you're not subdividing a lot, any, as we've said many times, any existing lot of record in A1, whether it's 2 acres, 1 acre, half acre in some cases, can be used and built upon as an existing record as long as the health department standards are met.
And I would look at that as creating a better condition. We do it right now for 3 places, which is Mulberry Estates, Melody Lakes, and Pine Lake, because those lots are almost, you can't build on just they're so small. So if somebody comes in and buys a couple of lots, which still is only 2/10 of an acre, then we allow them to combine those two so that then they can hopefully put a structure on it, as long as they can meet health department requirements and the setbacks.
Now, a related circumstance, and this was brought up in public hearing discussion several times. What about, two adjacent A1 parcels that were subdivided previously that maybe are, 3 acres each? And so a 3-acre parcel at this point, based on the equation we're talking about, could not be subdivided because there's an absolute minimum of 2 acres for resulting from minor subdivision. But in the scenario we're talking about, if there are 2 adjacent 3-acre parcels, they could be recombined into a 6-acre parcel and then subdivided into 3 2-acre parcels.
2 years later. Or would they still have to wait the 2 years?
I think they would have to wait
So you think they would have to wait the 2 years?
Yeah, I think they would in that scenario, because you're actually that would be trying to get around a loophole.
Yeah.
You're combining lots to a 6-acre, then to divide it, you're taking 2 3s to combine them into a 6 and then turn it back to a 2. I say you gotta
So
wait,
if I
I say
own
you gotta
3
wait 2
acres,
years.
and you own 3 acres, and I decide to buy your 3 acres, I'd wait 2 years, and then I could put them together, or I'd put them
Yeah,
together
you can put
then.
them together,
And then I'd have to wait 2 acres before I sold, I'd have to wait 2 years before I had to sell off, say, 2 acres, or I divide it into 3 2-acre lots,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, in that scenario, that's the way that would,
unless you're family.
unless you were.
Back to the, commercial, going back to ag, that would come before the planning commission. Because in some cases, there may be commercial all around it, and the planning commission may determine that turning that back to ag is not the best use of that land.
Correct.
Which is why we go through the planning commission.
It's a rezoning, every rezoning goes to the planning commission.
So,
I don't see that as a problem. Megan and I looked at that one, and we didn't see a problem. Of course, as it is now, that's the way we were looking at it.
but I'm just saying,
But in the
that's
future,
the
that would be a little bit different.
that same scenario is the purpose of having these 10-acre divisions come back to the planning commission if they want to rezone, because to take another look at where it is, what's around it. Is it leaning more residential? So would that be appropriate or not? Now, talk about under this scenario that's proposed, the modular home issue.
If it's A1, that would still be allowed to put a mobile home on it.
Regardless of what it is. I mean, acres.
Acres. As long as it's A1.
Manufactured home, the technical and current term, is a allowable use in A1.
In A1.
Correct.
So all of the concern about, oh my, we can't give our child a piece of land for them to put a modular home, we can do that on a 3-acre lot,
On 3 o'clock,
or in this case,
it could go down to 2.
It could be as small as 2, and
Right.
map. Right.
although I think a lot of that discussions.
What if you had a mobile home on a lot less than 2 acres? And you rezoned it in with, you had 3 acres, it's A1, you couldn't do that, right?
What?
Because a mobile home, I'm assuming, would be R1 unless it's already zoned A1.
No,
So-
manufactured housing is not allowed in R1, only A1.
All right, so if the mobile home, you took it less than 2 acres, and you had other land around it, pick whatever acres you want, 6, 7, I don't care. And you put it back in there, because you decided you just want to put them all together, because you're tired of paying 2 different tax bills,
Okay.
right? And then, somewhere down the road, you decide that you're moving to the Bahamas or wherever, and you sell that land, and those people buy that land, could they take the mobile home back out? Or would they have to take it back out with 2 acres instead of the less than 1, since it got put back in?
If they were gonna, so it became a larger tract.
Right.
By means of recombining.
Yeah, because I know there are little mobile homes around,
Right.
and they're surrounded by bigger tracts of A1.
Right.
And if that lot gets bought in, and then somewhere years down the road, when we're all out here, You know, and I know this is a way out there, could it be taken back out and stay A1 as long as it was 2 acres or 3 acres?
It would have to meet the subdivision requirements in the code at that time.
Right.
Whatever those are. If this were in place and still in place, then it would depend on the size of that recombined tract, what could be the minimum lot
As
size.
Susan was talking about, we know with Pine Mountain Valley, where there are some of those homes out in that area. And, you know, and I don't, it may never happen, I mean, I don't know. But that, you saying that kind of brought it up, like, well, we do have some old homes that are next to large acre tracts.
Sure.
That might get put back in with that large acre tract. I don't know. I know we're doing a lot of what ifs, but I think the more what ifs we do, the better we're gonna make this whole process.
Well,
Then we've thought of everything in a bigger picture thinking and not a little picture thinking.
It's the what ifs that were brought up in the public hearing that
Yeah.
caused us to analyze and come up with an alternative. Very important.
The family heir, minor subdivision today is 5 acres. This puts it at 3.
Correct, correct. Which is as it has been in the draft UDC.
And then the major conventional subdivision of A1 remain at 10.
And I would say the purpose and intent there is for, the intent for major subdivision is the R1 district. So if someone wants to do a very large lot, major subdivision in R1 and A1 with large lots, then that option is there. But if someone wants to do a more conventional, as we were seeing typically, major subdivision, then R1 would be the appropriate category for that.
There is another one in here that we have discussed, but I want to make sure it's clear. Currently, we have, if you divide anything greater than 25 acres, it doesn't fall under, it stays as a, I mean, you could divide 100 acres into 4 lots, or 200 acres into 8 lots, or whatever. As long as they were all greater than 25, they still fall to a minor subdivision. We're proposing that that number changes to 30 acres.
To correspond with the math of the equation.
It helps out with equation is what it does.
So
It
100
wasn't
acres,
just a number.
so 100 acres would have to go to 3 lots instead of 4. Because 25 is,
Correct.
Well,
you know, because you can only do 3 lots of 30, or 32 and a third, or 33 and a third, whatever it is.
And then after 2 years, if that person that had 30 acres wanted to split up into 10 acre lots, they could. And then 2 years later, if they want to split that up into 3 more, they could.
or a 100 acre lot could be divided into two 10 acre lots and an 80 acres remaining. There's a number of variations there.
But there's also a statement in there that says at any time, if the community development director deems that you're creating a major subdivision, you start from the word go and go back through the process.
You left all the road frontage requirements the same? Or you look back,
We're still leaving it on.
doing the same?
We have not, we haven't modified anything to this point, obviously. We were bringing this proposal as an alternative for A1 minor subdivision minimum lot size. Nothing else is changes at this point. We believe that everything else, as is in the UDC, works with this proposal.
What are you talking about, the driveway cuts and the,
Yeah.
For the road.
so there's 3 and,
We're still looking at 100 feet for road frontage now. I mean, that's where we've been for a while. Unless it was a flag lot in the right location, then it could go. Now, do understand, if you're on a GDOT road, if you're on a major highway or anything like that, they have discretion to combine driveways and they do it quite a bit. It's gotten more and more prevalent in the past few years.
well, someone made the statement at the public hearing that they didn't know what the A in our zoning code was about. It certainly wasn't agricultural. I don't know if y'all know what a gate card is. Unless you're farming, you may not know what a gate card is. But a gate card is a state provided card to individuals who are in agriculture. And it exempts them from sales tax on equipment, seeds, fertilizer, buying a tractor, all of those things that it takes to run a farm or run an agriculture. And it's very well audited and monitored. I mean, if I go to Tractor Supply and I buy dog food, I pay sales tax. But if I buy cow food, I have my gate card, I don't pay sales tax on it. And last year, Steve Morgan told me that in Harris County, the gate card receipts, that means the amount of money purchased agricultural items in Harris County was more than $15 million. So if you don't think we have agriculture in Harris County, think about it. He keeps up with that, tracks it, was very well audited by the state, and if you get caught using that card for something other than your ag-related items, you're personally, I think that this might provide the compromise that we need to move forward to keep us from wasting time and money and effort that we put into this. And maintains those large plots of land that has to go through rezoning if it's going to be developed into parcels less than 10 acres.
Any other questions from the board?
Are there any other items that that we were at such odds about?
Now, refresh my memory on this one. As far as it goes, is the driveways to minimum lots, or roads to minimum lots. What do we? Was it 4?
So you're referring in that
It was
to,
4 to 2, but did we land back on 4 or what did we?
And that's a great question. I thought we went back to 2, but
yes, so I think what you're,
I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear that. Could you repeat that,
I
please?
think I know what, tell me if this is not the point you're talking about. Within a major subdivision, a limit was placed on the number of lots in a new major subdivision that can front on an existing county road, as opposed to having driveways off the new road. Is that that's the point? So that, in the most recent draft of UDC, that number was set at 2. And that also corresponds with the minor subdivision map. Based on that number.
So that fits within this criteria.
It does. It ties, it's consistent with the map and this approach as well.
So a minor subdivision, refresh my memory, Lee, is how many lots?
Fewer than 4.
Okay, so are you saying that one of those lots can't have a road out, a driveway on the road?
No, in a minor subdivision, all 3 lots would be expected to have driveway access to an existing street. I guess what I'm saying is that in the scenario of a 200-acre tract that's proposed to become a subdivision, a developer via minor subdivision would have the option of creating 3 lots, a really big one and then 2 smaller ones, all fronting on the county road, and then going through a major subdivision process for the large lot, based on the way the rules are set up. So there's effectively a built-in loophole that can't be avoided. So it's setting that minimum number of lots fronting existing road at 0 is really an artificial solution. So setting it at 2 is equivalent with either approach.
So
Right.
you got 100 acres.
Yes.
and you divide it into two 10-acre tracts and two 40-acre tracts.
Well, two 10-acre tracts and one 80-acre tract.
All right, that's
Yes, sir.
one 80-acre tract.
Right,
The 80 acres could be major subdivision if they wanted to build that.
that's right,
The two 10 acres could end up being minor subdivision.
that's right.
And if the 10 acres are lengthways, so it's 10 and 10, there can be 6 driveways. Because if they divide it into minor, there'd be a driveway per each lot.
After 2 years.
Right, but I'm saying, so it doesn't matter if it's lengthways or if it's 10 acres, the road's here and it's 10 acres going back that way. If it's 10 acres going back that way, then they'd have to do an easement or a driveway, they'd have to figure something else out. But if it's 10 acres here
With a lot of road frontage.
with a lot of road frontage, it could be, you can put 6 driveways there. And then this, after 2 years, then this 80 acres could have 2 driveways if it turned into an 80-acre subdivision on the road. Because you'd have to have a road into the, because that'd be a major.
We would want it to have another exit, yeah. And
Right, that's what they'd have, 2 exits.
We want it to have at least 2, yes.
Right.
One and
Because
two
of
or
the number.
required two?
Huh?
One and two or required?
Required because we're putting that in there.
Right, so they'd have to have 2, they'd have to have 2 ways in and out.
2 egress, egress.
Right.
Correct.
And then their lots could have, out of all that, they could only have 2 driveways on the road because they already got an entrance. They got an entrance and an exit.
Yes.
Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
you just said we're putting that in there. We're putting this in what?
It's in the proposed ordinance, that number, we've always had that
Well,
theoretical.
that's my question. I don't have a copy of
It's-
it proposed. The last one was not approved, so what are we working from?
We are working from the draft UDC document that is still posted to the county website.
That was denied.
That's correct.
Correct.
The 3 of us asked to be brought back to the table.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
The 3
that.
of us asked to be brought back to the table, that document.
So we are bringing back the denied ordinance, proposed ordinance. Is that what I'm understanding?
At least portions of it.
Yes. You're bringing back the whole thing.
Yeah, what we're talking about tonight thus far is a proposal to modify one of the key aspects of that, I guess, in terms of the public comments we've heard. Aside from that, we are glad to discuss any aspect of the ordinance, but with the interest and intent of bringing back a UDC for consideration, our understanding is that that base document is the latest version UDC still posted to the website in terms of its content.
Any other questions? The only thing, I don't know if it's a question. We're, Susan says she thinks this is a good compromise. I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it's not, but it's kind of funny to me that it took us 2.5 years to get to this one compromise. Because
Amen.
we've been talking about this same little issue and a few others for 2.5 years. So, I mean, I don't know why we couldn't have come up with, not throwing y'all under the bus, but I don't know why we couldn't have come up with something like this a lot sooner based off the comments we've had previously, so we might not get into the situation that we got into.
I think a lot of that has to do with the comments that we received at the last meeting, which were a lot of family owners, and that's what really brought it to this. Because prior to that, we were working on developers.
Right, and I was the only one talking about family people,
Right.
and I'm glad family folks showed up. I appreciate that, Eric.
And that's when we really started trying to find that equilibrium for everybody, and it made sense. We were discussing it one day, and we thought, okay, let's just go for it. and bring it to you. It's another option. It's an option that y'all may not like, and y'all can throw it out the door, but we worked on it. We think it's a pretty good solution. I'm not saying it's 100% proof, but, it's not, it may have some faults in it. Yeah, we did discuss the pros and cons. As you remember, I was against the 10 acres from the word go.
I know, that's what I'm saying, I find it ironic, this is a compromise, but it took us 2.5 years to get here,
About a year.
but I'm glad that, you know, the people showed up, the other
Yes.
folks, and y'all started hearing basically what I was trying to say, and I probably wasn't saying it eloquent enough, but that's where I was coming from, and I wish we could have done this sooner, so we wouldn't have got into where we are now. You know, where it's, we're actually dealing with a document that was denied. So in that case, if it was denied, and we have the 3 that brought it back, what are we going to submit?
That's what we're doing now. I think kind of going over some of these issues that whenever we denied this, there was a large group of people that come in with concerns. They didn't understand what that was, how their properties were going to be affected. And from this point, it actually gives extra time and extra discussion to be able to go through the pain points. For one, that is fear of their land. What's going to happen to their land? What can they do to their land? If it's existing today, what is going to change too? It opened up the dialogue to where people can come in and actually have those fears expressed and be able to understand where this is going to protect the county, not take something away.
If I could add from a technical and process standpoint, based on your direction, staff would reintroduce the UDC with changes as directed to the process of planning commission review with public hearing, then returning to Board of Commissioners, public hearing and for consideration.
So that gives the option for everybody to show up to address each one of their concerns during both those meetings.
Additional public hearing. And then, we brought to you the proposal regarding minor subdivision minimum lot size that we've been discussing so far tonight. Were any other, changes or possibilities that you would like to discuss? We're glad to. Of course, we also have, from our last discussion about this, several proposed minor modifications that were discussed in the previous board meeting concerning definition of family applicable to family heirs rights, and some other minor ones that we would assume those should be changed accordingly within the UDC draft, as well as a change to the minor subdivision minimum lot size approach. Directed to do that.
So are you talking about, I think Susan brought this up, the water?
Yes, that was one of them, and that's a very valid point for discussion. Based on, and Brian, you might describe this better than I am because it came from your discussions with the health department, but the technical proposal in the ordinance, Article 3, Section 337, was to revise the special event facilities requirements to add a requirement that water for a special event facility shall only be provided by a public water source. Wells shall not be utilized to provide water for such facilities unless specifically approved by the health department. So that was proposed based on health department input? Yes.
Okay, if I could interject.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a text conversation with the health department. And the health department said this needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. They do not recommend, or did not recommend today, that this be painted with a broad brush, that it first must go to DNR and then the health department. That was what I was told today is their feeling on this.
Yeah.
Rather than say, no venues on well water, it needs to be done on a case-by-case basis but first must go to DNR. And then the health.
That was the
That's right.
same with my discussions too.
Well, that's not what they told us. And I'll say that right here, that was not what we were told.
I understand
Well,
that.
I'm just
And
sharing.
yes,
what
and
I
that,
have-
we're
what I
perfectly fine with
have
that.
in text message.
Right, we're perfectly fine with that. If they want to send them, they can go to DNR first. If you're on a well, you go to DNR first, that's fine with us, that's not a problem. We'll just make it part of our process.
Well, I think what it needs to be closely coordinated, further, the wording of that needs to be closely coordinated further with the health department.
Okay, we'll do that.
So it's an individual case-based verbiage that'll be added up.
Yeah,
I
and
I
basically,
just don't think we need a blanket statement that says you can't have an event center on a well. That's crazy.
especially
I
where,
agree.
that's where most of them
I
are.
mean, then we're not gonna have any events.
That's right.
Events.
Well, one of the
There
things you
won't-
also
there won't
gotta
be
think
any-
about,
There won't be any more.
if you have occupancy load of more than 100 people, and you're serving alcohol, you're gonna have to sprinkle that building, so you're gonna have to get public water there anyway.
Well, that's all in the.
That's all in the, yes,
But to say you can't have an event center.
I agree, but that's not what
In
we're.
a county where we don't have widespread.
Well, I just think it needs to be coordinated and you need to talk to the health department again, just to make it clear. And as I was told, do not paint it with a broad brush as you cannot have, venues on wells. It needs to, it's a little more complicated than that.
That's easy, you just take that verbiage out altogether, we run it through our office that way. It just becomes part of our checklist, that's not a problem. That's easy.
Well,
because
I
that's
would
still-
like to request that you get with the health department one more time, just to
Okay.
make sure that you can get that verbiage correct.
Okay, we'll do it.
Now, if we do that on a case-by-case basis, and we can't do other stuff on a case-by-case basis, because that might lead to spot zoning with that.
Now, this is not on zoning, this is.
I know, but I'm just saying, so,
No,
I'm
this
saying
is
there's a point to say that it's not spot zoning.
This is the health department and the DNR decision strictly.
Based on water quality in a mountain.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so this would not be considered some kind of spot zoning situation.
No,
That's
they
what I'm
can't.
saying.
No,
It's
no,
not, it has
no,
nothing to do with zoning,
Okay,
it's,
so we just need to make sure that that goes out there, so people understand that this is a case-by-case basis, it's different than the other stuff that we were talking about trying to do on, that, Commissioner Irons brought up about doing on a case-by-case basis with the commercial coming back to agriculture.
Right.
That's a different, it's a different
This
situation.
this would be in their area, not in our area.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the difference is whose jurisdiction the decision rests
Mhm.
in. Every zoning decision that you make month by month is a case-by-case basis effective.
Right.
So, but it's in your jurisdiction to make zoning decisions, whereas the water decisions are in the health department state jurisdiction.
okay. I got it, Ms. Baker, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The other issue was the, adding foster children to the family. And,
And just to clarify, it was broader than that. It was broadening the definition with many different categories, including foster children. That's right.
and all of those were blood relatives or they were adoption by a court. So, as I said before, you know, I certainly appreciate foster parents and what they do, but that child is not their child, you know what I'm saying? And is usually a temporary basis, although I know some stay with foster parents for a long, long time, till they're 18. But, I just don't understand that being included.
And I think, again, the basis, just for clarification, the basis of that was a state legal definition used in other codes per the county attorney. So we didn't craft that, we proposed making it consistent.
And you proposed to take it out, and that's kind of where we were at that point.
I don't know how much you feel about that. I mean,
I don't have an issue with it. Landlord situation.
I'm I'm sorry, Andrew, what was that?
So I didn't have any issue leaving the foster child as a listed kin member, I guess. I guess it's just one more option for the landowner of who they can buy that property to.
Well, I agree with you, I don't have an issue with leaving that also.
Leave it in, take it out. Foster.
I'm
You
for
say yes?
I'm for leaving it in.
Okay. 2 for yes, 1 for no.
I'm for more willing to err on the side of that foster person probably is considered their child or their whatever. So I'm more for erring on the side of the family and the foster person, and it's not a foster person that came and was there for 2 weeks and were gone.
Right.
You know, but you can't tell, we don't know.
Yeah,
But we don't know, but I'm more for that if they're gonna leave it to a foster person, I'm gonna go on the assumption, we all know what that does, is that it's a foster person that was probably there longer than a couple months, that might have been there a year. But we don't know, there's no way to tell.
that's right, but that
I
child,
think when we get into that, that's way too much.
I do too, that's what I'm saying,
That's
I
my
lean
job.
more to leave it in.
I don't think that's my job to say. If they're designated as a foster child, I don't think it's up to me as a government policy maker to say, well, they've been there 2 weeks, so that doesn't make them foster. So I just say you leave it in as foster.
well, think about this, once that child, I guess, could be deeded land unless, if they're younger than 18. But once they're 18, they are no longer a foster child, they're an adult. So, they're not part of that family, even recognized by the foster family system, once they turn 18. So I guess you would deed that to a minor child. But once that child turns 18, they're no longer a foster child. They're deemed an adult.
But they were foster when it was deeded to them, so.
If they deeded it to them when they were prior to 18 years old.
Right.
But I look at 2 scenarios here. I may be with this family for 16 years and then I blow it out in the water. They hate me from then on. I'm not gonna get no piece of land. I may be with them for 2 months. They love me to death. I wanna give you a piece of land. If they wanna give me a piece, leave it up to them.
I agree 100%.
I
It's
think
too
we're
good up
getting
to
way into
them.
tying too many shoes here.
I just think when we're talking family, that doesn't fit the definition, but you got 3. I mean, I'm fine.
Bobby?
I just want to say all
In my opinion, I think it's discretionary, honestly, to me.
All right, we'll leave it in.
I think there was no controversy about, in Article 2, changing the allowance for volunteer fire departments from special use to allowed in all zoning districts, so that anywhere that the volunteer fire department determines it makes sense to add
Yeah.
volunteer fire.
Instead of them having to come before the board and let's refund them their money,
Yeah.
let's just leave them where they don't have to get a special use permit, and they'll be fine.
Is that the only department that provides a
I agree
service?
with that.
That provides a
I
service to
agree
the
with
county,
that.
doesn't provide for themselves, is that the only department that's not that way? It has to get the special use?
I believe so.
I can't recall the others. I think schools are allowed by right, not requiring
Yeah.
special.
And churches are allowed in every district.
Churches as well.
Private schools do have to get a special use permit. But I
That's
call
a
it
private business. It's not
Private business.
Yeah, it's more of a business than it is.
It's got a business behind it.
Correct, it is a business.
Well, it's not profit. I mean, it's not profit.
It is a for-profit business.
Right, yeah.
Were there any other areas that we flagged last time?
We had just a couple of modifications in Article 11 regarding procedures. There's a little bit of language that has persisted through the years that makes a planning commission meeting sound more like a court case.
We took that out.
And so that's proposed to be taken out as well, but that's really just cleanup.
It's just
common sense
procedural.
type stuff, procedural. And then with should the alcohol ordinance and the UDC be considered at the same time or in conjunction, then we would make sure that the definitions in both are directly consistent. Of course.
And fee schedule,
And fee schedule is
two
consistent.
modifications on it.
Right. That's the full list of, from our last discussion, that's the full list of department proposed edits to the document that exists on the county website at this point.
Okay. Do you have anything, Mr.?
I do want to clarify one thing about PR, or anything that's PUD related, PRDs, PCDs, PMDs. They're currently effective as the ordinance stands that we have. So if somebody wanted to come next week and put in an application for a PRD, they could under the current ordinance, because the moratorium went out. It's no longer in effect.
You could under the ordinance we're proposing too, correct?
Yes, that's a definite, but
But
I
you
just want to
could
let y'all
now.
know that the
What you're saying
moratorium
is
is
they
gone.
could right now before that ever
When did it
comes.
expire? Last December.
When, Brian?
Last December, I believe that's right. It was when either, where the decision was made, or there was a date,
It was a date.
and whichever came first, not last. So, the date's long
Well,
past.
then it expired on, when we denied this, because that was the date, I believe, that we said
It could have been
it
then.
goes,
We
moratorium
could go
goes
back then,
until we make a decision on the UDC.
Either way, both were in December, so we're
No,
done.
we just denied this.
Well, you denied it back in December too.
Yeah, but
November.
we added, I thought we added it to it stayed until we made a complete decision, which was whatever, a couple
Still a
of months
denial.
ago.
Either way,
I don't know,
yeah.
but either way, yeah, it's denied, so it's in place now, it's in place in whatever this we have now, even though this has all been denied, but we brought it back up and we're
Our
trying to tweak
current ordinance for a PRD is
it. Turn, or is.
not good, let me put it that way.
I think we need to put it back on moratorium until we can iron all this stuff out, to be honest with you.
That's your decision.
I think we need to put it on moratorium until we can assess the effect of the growth on our infrastructure and how we're able to handle all of that. We're looking at the water tower right now and other things, and I think that we probably need to just take a breath on that until we see how this is going to affect the infrastructure.
And we definitely need to revisit those guidelines.
That we've already done.
Well, let's see
Brian,
if it
do you
fits
see,
county.
Brian, do you see anything in the pipeline in the near future? On development?
Not on that part, no ma'am.
But it could
Right.
come in tomorrow.
It could come in tomorrow,
You can't predict
yes.
that.
But
I
typically,
understand that.
right.
I get it, it can come in tomorrow.
But we typically, that's the good thing about the new ordinances, or the proposed ordinance, excuse me, is that we're putting things in there that are going to require, when you have certain projects, you're gonna be required to meet with us prior, before even an application goes in. Because we want you to understand what you're getting into.
I'm gonna get that and put that back in moratorium.
That's the reason I wanted to bring it to your attention. Sorry, John, what you got?
Well, do we have something in there, in this ordinance, and I've read it, and looked through it, and I may have just missed it, and I've read it so many times, I may just like being in the snow, and then you get snow blind. Well, I've read this thing over and over, I may just have missed over it. We have something in there that basically states that we have to have the master plan for resorts or for anything else on file. regardless of anything, city, outside city, their resort, we have to have a master plan.
We don't have that as proposed, I don't think, because they're in the defunct file. We don't have a lot of resorts here.
So all the resorts we have now, do we have their master plans current? Or do they have to get a current?
We only have one.
Just Callaway?
Nope.
Oh, no, you're saying we only have one master plan.
I wouldn't, those is the only one we have.
I thought we had Piedmont.
Yes, we do have Piedmont, we have two, you're correct, thank you.
Because I noticed on there, that there are several things shaded green that are resorts that even I didn't realize were resorts. Like out there all down 185, from Hopewell Church Road to 116, that whole area is zoned resort, although they do it.
Also been put into permanent conservation,
Absolutely.
permanent conservation.
Is that Callaway Forest?
It's not it's
No, that's, the Foxworthy.
Foxworthy.
And, all that. But like I said, I didn't realize that was resort, that's why I'm,
Right.
you know.
So in the current ordinance, resort is inactive, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
In the
Yes.
proposed ordinance, is it inactive?
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
So, we could move PRD and PUD and all those into inactive and have,
You want to move them into inactive or just put a moratorium on them?
it's the same difference, isn't it?
No, ma'am.
Well, tell me the difference.
We put that into the active folder, we don't touch them, period.
Inactive folder.
Until you come back and, or till you or some other commission comes back and say that they want to put that back into place.
So what's the difference between moratorium?
Moratorium can run out after a certain amount of time, yes.
Okay,
That's
but you still wouldn't do anything with one if they walk through the group and say it's in moratorium. Or
There
it's
is-
inactive, I mean, your response would be the same?
So procedurally, the difference is if put in inactive status, to bring back to active status would require a text amendment, which is the process we're going through now formally in terms of public hearings and adoption, zoning procedures law, et cetera, and rewriting the document. So it would be a multi-month process. Ending a moratorium is a single vote process. Also, though, a moratorium must be, now, I'm not gonna,
It has an end.
yes, I'll just stay there. I'm not the attorney, so. Moratoriums have strict guidelines.
Yeah, that's have a date, an end date, whereas the inactive is just inactive. But it has to go through a whole process to come back.
Correct.
What the moratorium means, we put an end date on it, and if we get to that end date, and we're still on a moratorium, we just add another end date. Or if at that time somebody comes in and wants to do one, and we think, as Susan said, we find out good things are going on in the grove, we could turn around and take the moratorium off.
I think
With less trouble than trying to move it from inactive back.
the
And I'm just talking about anything, not just PRDs on anything.
only
And
caveat.
I believe that that's the way it's been explained in the past.
Yeah. The only additional understanding I have about a moratorium is that there needs to be a logical basis for the period of time. For example.
Right, and I believe our attorneys in the past explained it that way.
Which would be sort of to the defining factor that Commissioner Andrews put up as far as what impact from the existing ordinance development is going to have in this town.
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble hearing. What was that?
So to the example that Commissioner Andrews gave, that this is to put it in a moratorium until the total impact to the county with the one that's currently in development is assessed.
Is the attorney on the line? Okay, and I seem to recall that John, when this first came up, I seem to recall that John Taylor, our late attorney, mentioned that we needed to have a date.
That's right.
But I don't remember the reason for that, but I remember that he did talk about that that he felt like that we really needed to have a date rather than, just a general until it's finished or whatever, but somebody could research that, I guess, and find out.
Yeah, he did say that there had to be a date And of
Yeah,
course, you could extend the date as you needed to, but there did have to be a date, which would bring it back for further discussion at that time to determine if your conditions had been met on it.
If it was a date, you could make it a date that's 3 years from now or 4 years from now.
Wasn't the
I
development,
think it's,
Or, that's what
I
I'm
think
saying,
you
that's
said
a
there
limit,
had to be,
a limit.
yeah, there is a
Like
limit.
there's only, like it could only be a year.
I don't think it was, I think it was 210 days or something like that.
I mean, I think, and I'm not disagreeing with this moratorium, but I think we need to make sure
Yeah.
we do it, we do it the way it's supposed to, because I know since I've been on the commission, we've had to extend the moratorium at least once, maybe twice, because it was running out of whatever that timeframe was.
right? So is that something we can get?
And Rob, I believe we also talked about that. I believe John I think we also had a discussion about if you put it too far out. There was a reason that you did not need to put it, but I don't remember what all that was. There was a reason that he had, that he felt like we should not do, longer term rather than a year, but I don't recall what that was. Susan might know.
because he said it would appear arbitrary, it would just.
Right.
Yeah,
For
that's
no
right.
reason,
That's
for no
right.
reason.
Can we find out what that term is?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it was, might have been a litigation, he felt it might have been a litigation point moving forward.
So as a matter of logistics, the change we've just made this evening, we can incorporate that to a memo, get it out by email to the board as soon as possible. The board can then review that during the commission meeting of September 6th, and then approve those changes to the denied UDC. And if that passes on September 6th, then we can apply to the Community Development Department with another application. By their deadline of September 12th, if we meet that deadline, the Planning Commission can hear the UDC again on October 19th. They'll go to the Board of Commissioners with a recommendation for the Planning Commission November 1st, and then the effective date could be January 1st.
And just to clarify, the October 19th and November 1st, both of those dates have public input
Those are
sessions.
public hearings.
Public hearings, yes.
During
I
regular
would think-
commission meetings.
I would like to propose that we not make it effective 2 months, and if it's passed, that would only give people 2 months, and we had talked about at least giving them 6 months in case there was something that was already, that would give them an opportunity to do anything that they were already in the process of doing. That only gives them 2 months if you do January 1st, if it's passed on November 1st.
I think I could understand that and justifying that if we were revising the whole document. If we're just hitting a few bullet points, I really don't think there needs to be a 6-month hiatus between that. I'm not sure what you guys do.
Yeah, I guess because we didn't, my thought was the last time that we had passed the UDC to give it several months, to allow people to.
Agree.
To have some time to.
I think if we're gonna be fair, that's what we should do.
I don't have an issue with it, if we voted to pass whatever, we come up with, we'd have a few months to allow people to make adjustments. I don't know necessarily using an exact time frame.
I think 90 days.
If you did 90 days, that'd be what?
February 1st.
Yep. So that actually makes it good.
Now, I know a lot of, real estate sometimes moves slowly, so I just want to make sure people have time, feel like that they have time to do what they feel like they need to do before this is passed. We've been 2 years and 8 months working on it. So what's another, giving them the opportunity, to do what they feel they need to do.
Repairs are at least 6 to 8 weeks out. There goes 2 of your months right there.
Yeah,
And then they gotta
That's
draw
right.
it up and get it filed and everything, so you're looking at another month at least. And that's after you've made the decision.
Well, if they know this is on the table, and they do, so. They can-
well, my question would be there, if we're only gonna give them 2 months, the landowners 2 months, who are we doing this for? I'm sorry?
90 days, 3 months.
They're proposing 3 months, Becky, not
I
2.
don't think 3 months is long enough, even based on what Brian was saying. They could get it done, if they could get it done in 3 months, that'd be great. But I don't think 3 months I would not go more than 6. But I think they should have ample time. I think the citizens should have ample time and they can't always control it. I sold real estate, I've done all that, I know how slow it can move. And as Brian says, there's some folks that are backed up. If they can get it done in 3 months, that'd be great. But I think you ought to give them ample time, I think that's only fair. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
And we have time to look at that, discuss that date further, we shall have to come up with a solution for UDC before we get to that point.
You gotta get through a vote on September 6th first.
So on September 6th,
I'd rather bring it up now rather than later.
Okay,
September 6th.
okay, here's the logistics again. Okay, when we leave here tonight, staff will prepare hopefully a one-page listing of every change we've made thus far tonight. And we'll get that by email out as soon as possible. Then, on September 6th commission meeting, the board will officially vote on those changes that will be made to the denied UDC. Then, if that happens, then we will meet the September 12th deadline for community development's application to appear before the planning commission October the 19th public hearing. They make a recommendation to the board for the board's November 1st public hearing, and if approved, it can go into effect anytime you want it.
Right.
So that's the logistics.
One clarification to that. And I'm not disagreeing, but just important to note, any vote on September 6th would not be to adopt anything. Right. It would simply be to direct staff to make revisions.
Yeah. And to apply, and to meet that deadline of community development application period. Yep, right, correct.
So that your public hearings can be scheduled.
Correct.
That's correct.
so the vote on September 6th would be to make revisions to the denied document and send it back through,
Yes,
if the vote goes that way.
yes.
That's
Or
what
not.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. So, as I asked when we denied this thing, I think Lee, I may have asked you, could we use this to try to redo this and revisit this down the road? And at that time, I was told we didn't think we could because it'd been denied, but we can. Our attorney or whoever that needs to say says that we can revisit. So basically, you and Brian and everybody else doesn't have to start completely over from scratch.
Correct.
So we have worked on this thing a long time.
Any other comments or questions this evening? Ms. Becky, do you have anything else this evening?
The only other thing I want to say doesn't have anything to do with UDC, that I don't know if everyone knows that Mr. Bill Champion passed away yesterday. He was our longtime airport manager, did an absolutely outstanding job and was a fine gentleman, and I did not know if everyone knew that.
Thank you.
If that's it, no comments, questions? No? Okay, meeting adjourned. Oh, yeah. I didn't hear it.